Please welcome to the stage Brian Murray, Director of the Nicholas Institute for Energy, Environment, and Sustainability at Duke University.
Thank you. It's really great to be here at NC State today. I want to thank the Institute for Emerging Issues for bringing us together, and for all of you for being here and working on what you're working on at this really critical time in North Carolina's energy future. I think you'll join me in saying this morning's sessions leading up to now have really set the stage, a tremendous platform for a deeper understanding of the challenges and opportunities facing the energy system in North Carolina. We're living through a period of enormous transition. North Carolina is experiencing rapid population growth, surging energy demand, and more frequent and intense climate events. And all this is happening against the backdrop of a national policy landscape that's really changing dramatically, bringing both uncertainty and new questions about the direction of energy in this state. The sessions today, whether they were on the aftermath of Hurricane Helene, infrastructure modernization, economic growth, or energy affordability, have underscored just how interconnected these issues are. My remarks right now are meant to be a bridge, a way to connect where we've been to where we might be going, a link between national and state policy directions, and to help frame the conversation Governor Stein will lead us on shortly. I want to talk a little bit about that shifting federal-state dynamic. Over the last few years, we've seen historic levels of federal investment through the Inflation Reduction Act, the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, and the CHIPS Act. These policies have been broadly aligned with North Carolina's bipartisan energy goals that have been established for decades now, advanced by Governor Cooper, passed by the legislature, and these federal incentives emphasized incentives over mandates. But that alignment has changed. On day one of the new administration, or the current administration, executive orders on energy dominance were put out, and the focus really shifted to a heavy emphasis on fossil energy and less of an emphasis on renewables, including directives essentially against offshore wind. In April, a new White House executive order on federal preemption was issued. It directs federal agencies, including the Department of Justice, to challenge state energy laws that are seen as inconsistent with the administration's national energy priorities. That raises serious legal and policy questions for North Carolina. Could state laws like the Clean Energy Plan passed just 4 years ago, or even the Clean Smokestacks Act more than 20 years ago, be considered out of step with federal directives? Then just last week, 4 new executive orders were issued aimed at dramatically expanding nuclear energy. That continues a bipartisan trend, but it also centralizes authority by reducing the independence of the Nuclear Regulatory Commission and accelerating federal control over permitting. For North Carolina, where nuclear remains among our 2 largest sources of electricity, accounting for about 1/3 of the power generation in the state, this creates opportunities, but it can pose risks if oversight and local context are deprioritized. And press reports from the weekend are that the US EPA is now writing rules that would end all federal limits on greenhouse gases from power plants, from fossil power plants. So my comments today are focused on electric power generation, but other federal policies affecting electric vehicles and industrial energy are also in a significant state of change. The key question is this: will federal actions now constrain or override the progress North Carolina has made through 2 decades of bipartisan energy leadership? And what does state-level leadership look like in this new era of federal priorities? So North Carolina is a bit of a fork in the road right now. With federal support for most decarbonized energy taking a back seat, state policy becomes the driver, not the passenger. North Carolina's carbon plan, driven by House Bill 951, remains in place, but the path forward is no longer reinforced by federal momentum. The choice is back in North Carolina's court. Does our state continue to invest in a diversified portfolio that includes solar, offshore wind, small modular reactors, and energy storage, or does it narrow those choices? This is not just a policy question, it's a question of economic identity for the state. What kind of energy industry does North Carolina want? What kind of jobs, infrastructure, and innovation do we seek? What industry do we want to attract? The shift in federal posture means this is no longer a national inevitability, it's a state-level decision. That said, there's still room for federal-state alignment, a lot of it. There may be common ground on nuclear development, as we just heard on permitting reform, and efforts to meet surging electricity demand. But the balance of the initiative has shifted, and navigating it will require a careful, deliberate strategy for North Carolina leaders. On infrastructure innovation and resilience, North Carolina continues to lead in solar capacity, and the state has strong potential in emerging technologies like offshore wind, small modular reactors, green hydrogen, and energy storage. But investment timelines are tightening. If you talk to anybody who invests in this space, they're nervous. And federal support for some of these technologies are receding. Without decisive state action, progress could stall. None of this matters without transmission. Grid modernization is often framed as a technical upgrade, and it certainly is. But beyond that, it's the foundation of economic growth, system resilience, and access to reliable power in every corner of the state. We face significant interconnection backlogs, permitting delays, and coordination challenges, not just in North Carolina, but across the country. And the legal and administrative procedures around infrastructure sit atop decades of well-intentioned and necessary protections that now may hinder the very progress they were meant to support. Ezra Klein and Derek Thompson's new book, Abundance, puts it well. We've built a labyrinth of rules over the last 50 years, and now we need a new way to build, faster, smarter, and with public benefit in mind. That challenge is national, but how we respond to that here in North Carolina will determine how much of the potential that we can realize. The targets North Carolina has adopted in terms of its carbon and energy goals, 70% emission reduction by 2030 or 2034, and net zero by 2050 are no longer a matter of federal policy alignment. They're strategic state choices about the kind of economy and energy system North Carolina wants to build. Clean energy may no longer be federally proscribed, but for North Carolina, it remains a key part of the energy mix, along with affordability, reliability, and economic growth. At the same time, we must keep fairness at the center of the agenda. Energy costs remain a serious burden for many families, especially in rural and lower income communities. If the energy transition is going to succeed, it must deliver across the board benefits. That means ensuring no region or group is left behind in the bid to modernize and decarbonize the grid. At the Nicholas Institute, we see our role as helping decision makers cut through complexity. From our modeling and policy analysis under Governor Cooper's Executive Order 80, to our long-going and current work on energy affordability and stakeholder convenings, we aim to bridge between research, policy, and practical solutions. We've worked closely with the state, with Duke Energy, with community groups, and with local and regional stakeholders throughout the region. And we've done it as a neutral convener, focused on what's real, what's possible, and what's durable. In this period of policy disruption, North Carolina needs trusted spaces for dialogue and informed tools for action. That's what we offer, and then we stand ready to help. Let me close by emphasizing this. Energy federalism creates a delicate balance between national and state authority and policy. When the federal government's policies are disrupted as suddenly and as much as they are now, states have to adapt and forge the way. That makes our work here in policy, in tech innovation, and in building a stronger energy system all the more important. Governor Stein has a well-earned reputation for pragmatic ways forward, and this is what is needed for the state's evolving energy policy, grounded in economic development, environmental responsibility, and public trust. I look forward to hearing how this administration plans to lead North Carolina through its next chapter. Thanks very much, and go Canes.